go to John, and he says, streaming is not the way to get your games in front of viewers. Just ask the Pac-12.
Oh, bingo. You hit that nail on the head. And by the way, they want your money. This stuff is not free. It drives me crazy because I like Thursday night football as a launching point for the great sports weekend, even if some of the games are garbage. Geez, now I've got to pay to see Thursday night football. And now suddenly they're taking games off my TV on the NFL Saturday schedule, and they're putting on Peacock. Where is Peacock? What is Peacock? I just hate this, that the league, which is making volumes of money, is always reaching for your wallet for the next creative idea. Mm-hmm. That really drives me crazy because the ticket prices are unbelievable. The league is selling out. And they're just like, you want to watch us? Pay us.
Well, I think it's also these new streaming networks. I mean, everything, Netflix changed the world. And so now all these Peacocks and Paramounts and all the big networks have their own streaming option. They're probably hound dogging the NFL to get rights, knowing that if they get NFL, they're going to get a lot more subscribers. So, it's not just that the NFL is reaching for money. Everyone's reaching for money, including these new streaming platforms.
Okay, move on. Next question.
Okay, let's go down the list here to 4RXLA. He says, if Michigan wins the title, Harbaugh will be like Jimmy Johnson when he came to Dallas and could win a few Super Bowls. Hopefully Mark Davis hires him, but he's already paying millions to fired coaches.
Yeah, Mark Davis is writing a ton of checks to a ton of different people that are no longer working for the man. It's an interesting assimilation of Jimmy Johnson. He was just inducted into the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor this past weekend. And I was the voice of the Chargers just when Jimmy Johnson wound up going to Dallas, and they walked into a bad situation. A lot of people forget they were 1-15 his first year. Troy Aikman was 1-15, but he was a really good player personnel guru and worked well with Jerry Jones. And they're the ones that engineered maybe as bad a lopsided trade in the history of the National Football League. The Herschel Walker transaction, Minnesota Vikings, 11-for-1. And that brought them Aikman, and that brought them Michael Irvin, and that brought them Emmitt Smith. And Jimmy Johnson was brilliant. Harbaugh walking into a situation with the Chargers, it's not as acute from a lack of player personnel as it was when Jimmy Johnson went to Dallas, because he inherits a really good quarterback, but he also inherits a monster salary cap problem, and he doesn't have any smart people around him. There's nobody from the first family of football that I would trust to make the right football decision. But that's an interesting comparison, that the potential of what the Bolts might be with Harbaugh is kind of like what the Cowboys became with Jimmy Johnson.
Isn't it weird how it's like a crapshoot hiring coaches? You think you're getting the hot guy and they're a dud. Or sometimes you get a guy like Antonio Pierce and they kind of do better than you expected. But there are certain coaches that kind of have that magic touch, right? And they can go from one franchise to the next and flip it around and make it successful. And so I think Jimmy Johnson is one of those kind of guys. And there's been a few others.
No,
Shanahan's a good one. Who else am I thinking about? Oh, remember the old guy that Dick Vermeil. Remember, he won Super Bowls for two different teams. But
Andy Reid,
yeah, he's in a couple of other magic dust kind of thing. But it's hard to identify that, don't you think?
And also, you have to have the unique relationship, team chemistry, correct philosophy with the general manager, and that's not always a perfect science along the way. So, hey, we'll see when the college football championship game is over on Monday. You think there'll be a few headlines? Harbaugh, Chargers, effective on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, it, especially the Black Monday when everything goes south for the NFL. Here, let's go to another one here. Let's go to Michael. He says, hi, Lee. What is the status of the lawsuit between Dean Spanos and his sister? Is there a real possibility the Dean would have to sell the team?
Well, she has alleged that he has mismanaged the team to the point they have to keep taking new bank loans to pay off other bank loans that are coming due. However, there was a theory that she would have to go to NFL arbitration over this lawsuit, and that never happened because it's like going to a kangaroo court, because Roger Goodell is judge and jury in the arbitration process over contractual disputes. The last report, this goes back about 6 months, was that Dia Spanos, the sister, had agreed that she would sell all, I think it's 34% of everything she owned. But the price tag is monstrous. I was told it's like $775 million if somebody wants to come in and buy 34% of the franchise. from the foundation and the ownership of the team. Has not happened yet. They've kept the lid on it. I guess as long as she doesn't speak out about it, we probably won't know till the sale officially comes before the Board of Governors for approval. But she wants out, and she's going to get her price to get out. And I don't know if Dean's going to buy her out, because then Dean would have to go to another bank to get another loan. And I just don't know what his real worth equity is right now.
Imagine spending $775 million and only getting 34% and with not having controlling interest. I mean, that's how insane these numbers are for these teams.
You'd spend all that money to sit in the skybox with the First Family of Football.
Yeah, right. Yeah, with probably no Taylor Swift up there. That's for sure.
Next question.
Moving on. Let's go to Emmanuel. He says, if the Chargers don't get Jim Harbaugh, then who would be the next head coach for the Chargers?
If they're going to venture to the offensive side of the football, but you're hiring another first-time hot offensive coordinator, that has not worked. It'd be Ben Johnson from Detroit, who's been the architect for what they've done to rescue Jared Goff, make the Lions really good. If not him, Frank Smith in Miami. Smith, Tua, look what they've put in place with the Dolphins there. I would say those would be the offensive guys. If you go defense, you got Dan Quinn, who did a great job in Seattle with the Seahawks, took the Atlanta job, actually got him to a Super Bowl in Atlanta, got fired, went to Dallas, has reinvented Cowboy defensive football. Jim Schwartz from Cleveland might be a long shot. He failed really badly in Detroit. Raheem Morris, that's a recycle coach with the Rams, used to be in Tampa Bay. He got bounced. So there's a myriad of veteran guys there. So that the question is, if not Harbaugh, then are you going to take a run at a hot coordinator who's never done it before as a head coach, or do you want some proven commodity who's reinvented himself? So, John, which door do you open?
Yeah, again, that's why I say it's like a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. I mean, obviously, they should go all in to get Harbaugh, but the Chargers are fools and they make bad decisions all the time. So I don't know of those other guys. I mean, to me as a fan, they're all kind of in the same murky water. They're all potentially good, but I don't know which one has the magic dust.
I'd avoided give me. That was an answer, non-answer.
But I don't know the answer. I mean, how am I supposed to answer it?
You're a talk show host. You're supposed to know everything about everything. I do.
Yeah, of course you do.
We move on.
Okay, let's go to Zach. He says, Jim Harbaugh would have more talent with my Chargers than Jimmy Johnson had with the Cowboys.
Exactly. Out. Well, we just talked about the roster that he inherited. I remember the first year I was the voice of the Chargers, they went 1-15, and they were miserable. But they flipped that thing, and they flipped it within 2 drafts. By virtue of the foolhardy trade the Minnesota Vikings made, the Herschel Walker 11-for-1 transaction was just horrific. But they made great progress. He was a great coach. I was surprised after the divorce from Jerry Jones. He never coached again. He just kind of walked away from it. And I thought he was just a vibrant guy. And he's beloved by his players. And so it was interesting. But Harbaugh would be getting a better team. But this is a different era now. They've got the salary cap problems with the Bolts are really, really severe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do here with these guys, but they've got a big decision to make, and they're probably going to flub it on Harbaugh.
Go ahead.
Moving on here. Let's go to Bill. He says, no way Harbaugh returns to Ann Arbor next season, right? Not with the huge NFL contracts that'll be waved in his face.
Well, it's a combination of that and then the Pete Carroll syndrome. Is he running out the back door before the cavalry gets there to arrest him? You know, there's a notice of allegations. It just was issued last week about violations at Michigan as it relates. This all spins back to what you and I talked about 6 months ago, the COVID violations. And, you know, Tennessee got put on 4 years probation and didn't get banned from a bowl game this year, but they stripped them of so many scholarships that in Knoxville, they're not going to win now for the next 3 or 4 years, even with Josh Heupel being the head coach. That was for COVID recruiting violations. And if they did that to Tennessee and you got the same set of circumstances at Michigan, I could see that happening to Michigan. So the question, you know, Bill, we got to ask, is Harbaugh running out the door because the sheriff is coming with a citation? You violated the COVID recruiting violations in 2020. You're going to get put on probation. So that's might be as much as equal to the $12 million offer to jump back to the NFL. And John Riley says,
I think you're right. I think I
know I'm right.
Yeah, you know you're right. Yeah, because it's like Pete Carroll. He's like exited USC when the stove got hot. So I think the same thing's going to happen. Imagine if Michigan wins the national championship, then all that hell breaks loose, and they would they have to forfeit the championship? Could you imagine that?
I think there's big questions. Would the NCAA nail these guys and take away wins? I tend to doubt it, but obviously there was a sanction already with Harbaugh getting suspended 3 games for the sign stealing. So
Yeah.
I don't think that'd be double jeopardy. And I cut class the day they taught law at Ohio University to go drinking uptown. So I'm not sure about double jeopardy, but I don't think so. But Harbaugh, they may get put on probation. Maybe there's a bowl ban if indeed the COVID thing is as significant as I think the COVID thing is.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. There's a lot of Chargers and Harbaugh comments here. Here's one from Callan. He says, "Do you believe that Mark Davis would hire Harbaugh to keep the Raiders relevant in Vegas, knowing they're kind of in the shadows of the Golden Knights and even the WNBA Aces?"
Nah, they hire Harbaugh. That's exciting. That they don't have a quarterback at this point in time, but that's why there is free agency that'll kick in the spring. So Harbaugh to Vegas restamps who they are and what they represent. He wouldn't be the shiny object that you're reaching for because, like I say, look at the record at Michigan, look at the record at San Francisco. There's quite a record on his resume. Okay, we got baseball here. Hey, baseball fans.
Baseball fans here. I think we will if we go over to social media. So let's go take a peek over there. And who do we got? Let's go to
I threw John a curveball.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
Swung and missed.
Yeah, this is a Trevor Bauer comment. Because every time we post Trevor Bauer content, boom, people just explode. Like, he was innocent and it's a sham. And so here's a comment here from John. He says, "He shouldn't have to apologize. It happened behind closed doors between 2 consenting adults. You're totally ridiculous. That girl is a con artist."
Yes, and yes to probably all of that. But there's a toxicity there that involves 3 different women. There's a lifestyle decision there that chases people away. I am surprised somebody has not signed him to a 1-year free agent contract. But again, it's the first week of January, so these deals can still get done. Maybe he still arrives here, and whoever signs him has to take the heat that they're going to get because he is a talent, but he's a toxic talent right now, even though you and he think it's okay what he did.
Well, I don't say it was okay what he did, but he's not, he's not under prosecution from the law. But even if you set aside that whole, con job from the girl and everything else, the dude is, when he gets pulled from a pitching, he throws the ball over the center field fence and he does all these other goofy things. He would be a PR nightmare to manage. So,
well, that or a resident free agent in today's society.
Yeah, exactly. All right, hey, let's go here to a comment here about the Bolts. This is talking about Hacksaw here. It says, "Used to listen to Hacksaw when he used to announce for the Bolts. His radio shows were awesome. Always clowned the Nazi Raiders fans, LOL. Can't do that now. Too offensive."
Raider fans. I used to just drive Raider fans and Raider coaches crazy. Funny story. I mean, at the peak of the popularity at 690, as the Chargers were getting better and better, Art Shell was the head coach of the Raiders. And I liked Art Shell a lot. I respect what the man became from tiny Maryland Eastern Shore to become a Hall of Famer and then a head coach and had some success. So we do a game up at the LA Coliseum against the Raiders, and we're done with the post-game show and all that. And it's late, and we're leaving and walking to the tunnel from the tunnel. Elevator came down into the tunnel, and then you walk up the tunnel and go out to the parking lot. And here's a guy in a Mercedes just coming up behind me, honking the horn. So I stepped over the side. He pulled up and stopped, rolled the window down. It was Art Shell. He said, "I don't agree with what you said about the Raiders." I said, "That's okay with me. Art, thanks for listening." He laughed. So really nice gentleman. Al Davis wouldn't say that to me. There was a smirk, and some of the Raider executives didn't like me. Freaking Raiders coaches all listened to me. It was absolutely hilarious. And I like some of those players. I thought Marcus Allen was one of the great players of all time. And I got to know Jeff Hostetler. He was from West Virginia, and I really liked him. Not that I rooted for those guys. James Lofton and I became friends, and he was one of them. We're in the Silver and Bleak. So it was great. And the best with the fans, I just used to bang on the fans all the time. And the greatest compliment I ever got was at halftime of a Charger Raider game at the LA Coliseum, and we're killing them. We were going to the Super Bowl that year. We get to halftime, and my broadcast partners, very popular guys, Jim Laslovic, Pat Curran on the broadcast. And we look at each other. It was like 30 seconds to go, and I made the comment, somebody cooking hamburgers, somebody burn the hamburgers. We get to halftime. This Raider fan, because the press box was right there just atop the stadium, right next to the fan seats. This guy's coming up right to the radio booth. I said, "Oh, Raider fan, paint and everything." He offered us joints at halftime.
Really?
You guys want some marijuana at halftime? That's what I was smelling. It wasn't hamburgers for certain. So I loved antagonizing the Raider fans.
And that's what makes this fun, and that's what this back in the early days of 690, we hadn't had anything like that. And now all of a sudden the Raider fans are talking smack to Charger fans a lot more than we normally would get in the 1980s and 1970s. So what a great time that was. I mean, and what a cool thing to run into a shell like that rolls down his window. Who was the other offensive lineman on the Raiders? Was it Unseld, or it was another, like a guard and a tackle? It was Art Shell and Upshaw, not Unseld.
Jim Otto,
yeah,
great.
But those guys were just beasts. I mean, what a great offensive line.
Okay, a couple more here before we put a lid on this.
All right, let's go here. We got a couple of comments here from people that watch the Slapshot content. This one's from Wayne. He says, "I have a great photo with the Hanson brothers when they came to our hometown. I'm 6'3" and I look small besides those guys. I fit in the jerseys 16, 17, 18, and 19. They signed my beer league jersey and talked a bit more before they headed out."
Cool Guys. That was a cult film. Those guys have lived off that cult film. One of the cool things they did, this goes back about maybe, 15 years ago, they started doing tours of minor league cities. The three, quote, brothers would come into your building and put on a show at halftime.
Like the San Diego Chicken or something?
Yeah, they'd come to a Gulls game. Not that they've been here, but they'd go to minor league hockey towns and they'd make these different appearances for a fee, and they were beloved. So if you've never seen the hockey movie Slapshot, you got to see the hockey movie Slapshot. Netflix, is that how you find it? Or you go on YouTube? Or
Well, I know there are pieces of it you can see on YouTube, and just whatever you're streaming, if you're on Amazon Prime, it might be there. I haven't looked for it.
You can find it in the library. You go to the library and they've got the DVDs of a lot of different movies. You just put in a request. I'd like to order a hold on the movie Slapshot. You got to see it. If I got hockey friends who had never seen it, I say, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Where you been? Go out of the house once in a while. But we had a lot of fun taking that stroll down memory lane.
Well, there were just so many positive comments on the Slapshot comment. Here's one more. And this one's from William. And he says, Bruce Boudreau was an extra in the movie, and it was his apartment that Paul Newman used.
Bruce Boudreau, I think, has played for every team on the planet. And I've known Bruce for a long period of time. And of course, he's a former NHL coach, had been with the Kings and Washington Capitals, etc. But he came from Toronto. He was a diminutive guy. He was as big as I was, 5'8". He could score and he could skate. And he played for the, quote, Johnstown Jets.
Oh, he did.
And he lived in the apartment that looked down on the closed steel mills on a hilly street. That was his apartment. Small one-bedroom, sleeping living room, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's the apartment they used for Paul Newman's apartment in Slapshot.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Isn't that perfect?
Yeah. Bruce Boudreau's a just career lifer in hockey, and has had